US rail link plan for West Asia. See, it is a very, very significant development. Let us understand this first of all. That recently Saudi Prince and Prime Minister hosted a special meeting of National Security Advisor of India, US and UAE in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The meeting is being held because another important quad, it is basically called as another important quad. Now, quad we know that it's about Australia, USA, Japan and India. Okay. So it's a informal kind of a mechanism to coordinate our policies, to coordinate our actions in the Indo-Pacific region. So this is the quad. Now, the four countries that we are talking about here is India, Israel, US and UAE, right? So these countries are sometimes also known as West Asia Quad, these four countries. Otherwise, they are also called I2U2. Okay, I2 stands for India and Israel, U2 stands for USA and UAE. Okay. Now, the leaders discussed an ambitious proposal to link the West Asian country through a rail link using Indian expertise and connect the region to South Asia via sea lanes. Let us understand this. See, they are trying to connect the West Asia with more larger region, both to the east of West Asia, also to the west and northwest of West Asia. Okay. So here, what is the benefit for India? Now what they are saying that they will use the Indian expertise. So that means we have immense expertise in developing infrastructure project, especially the rail projects. So that means Indian corporation, Indian companies, both private and public sector, will be doing certain projects, rail projects in the Middle East. So it's going to give us the business. Okay. So that's important thing. Second important thing, as it is said, that South Asia region will be connected via sea lanes. Okay. So we will reach the West Asia from Mumbai to this via the sea link. Okay. That means we will use the navigation ships, cargoes, etc. to reach there. Okay. And after that, we can reach up to Europe by using this link, the rail link that we will be helping building. Okay. So that will effectively do one important strategic benefit to us. I'll just mark it. It will be giving us an alternative route to Suez Canal. Now, presently, if we have to reach to Europe, we have to go from here to here, and from here to Suez Canal, and passing the canal to Mediterranean Sea and further into it. Right. So, number one, it's a longer distance. The distance is longer. This route will be shorter, right? So it will save some time. Also, the Suez Canal is also vulnerable. Recently, a larger cargo ship was stuck at the canal, and because of which the trade impacted. Okay. So we don't want that kind of situation to emerge in future, right? So we want to have various alternatives. It's not that we are going to shun this Suez Canal route, but we need not want to be dependent too much on a choke point, right? Maybe in an event of conflicts in future, this Suez Canal might be blocked because of war that might be going on. Already we are seeing the Israel-Hamas conflict, and Egypt is very much part of it, right? So Egypt, it is the canal that is passing through this Egypt. Okay. So we have to understand that any conflict that can boil in West Asia can impact our interests significantly. Therefore, we don't want to be dependent on one particular navigation route for our reaching our markets for exports as well as import. Okay. Now, another important thing that we have to understand here, that this nation called Pakistan, rather nation or country, whatever we call it, this nation effectively blocks India from accessing the Central Asian market, Central Asian states, right? So India is practically landlocked with respect to accessing larger Central Asian markets and further into Russia. Okay, so we are figuring out another way through the Chabahar port to reach further into the Russian markets and maybe to further to Europe, and this is called International North-South Transport Corridor. Okay, so in addition to this, in addition to International North-South Corridor, this can prove to be an important link for India to reach to the European markets, right? So we are trying to explore multiple routes to explore more market and to enhance our exports. Now, another important thing that we have to understand here is the Chinese role. Now, China is pushing BRI, Belt and Road projects. What India calls or India thinks is that China is following something called its mission creep. Now, this mission creep is nothing but trying to gradually and incrementally building the influence in the region. Now, initially, as we have seen with the colonial powers, the East India Company came in the name of trade. So they were talking about doing trade. Later on, they started interfering in the internal political affairs, and gradually they had started to creep in from economic sphere to political sphere and ultimately capture the state power, right? So China is also planning to do something. So it will creep in gradually. It will start with BRI as an important economic project, then it will turn it into the political dimension and build political influence in those countries, and gradually it will creep into the state institutions also, and therefore it can create a kind of influence which will impact the autonomy, the foreign policy autonomy of the West Asian nations. Now, what is the impact of this compromised foreign policy autonomy of the West Asian nation upon India's interest? Let us understand that India developed or found Farzad B in Iran. It's an important natural gas area which India discovered. Okay. Now, this, as per the agreement also, we should have been given a decent amount of share in it so that we can exploit it and we can bring the natural gas to our home, right? But under the influence of Chinese, possibly under the influence of Chinese, this is not going forward because ONGC Videsh, despite discovering this field, gas field, is not getting the terms favorable to us from the Iranians, and it is possibly happening at the behest of China. What caught recently India and USA both off guard is that recently China has basically tried to broker the peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran also, the arch rivals, right? So Chinese influence has brought them down to the table and their relations are now improving. And USA was not aware of it. So it caught USA and India both unaware, right? So now this is what we are saying as a mission creep, that gradually they will increase their influence and then they will deny us material benefits from the region, as happened in the case of Farzad B. Also, our port project, Chabahar, that I have already talked about, that will help us link to the international north-south corridor and also other Central Asian region, has not been able to properly take off because of Chinese influence and interference in Iran. Okay, so we have to be very careful, and this is why this USA, that the rail link that USA has proposed is important for India, because it will help counter Chinese influence. Okay, so it's a very important, because this is an area from on which we depend for our economic security, because a lot of remittances is coming from this region, because a lot of Indians are living there, right? It is also for our energy security, because huge amount of oil and natural gas is coming to India from this region. So we cannot let this region slip from our hand. Okay, same are the concerns for the USA also, right? So USA is also, that's why proposing this link. Now it will be helpful for us also, because as I already said, that it will use Indian expertise, so we will be able to export our projects to the West Asian countries. This project aims to link Indian subcontinent in South Asia with West Asia, which US calls Middle East, right? Connect Gulf and Arab countries via network of railways. Now, when we are talking about connecting the Gulf countries with each other, it is also going to be having a significant impact on the peace and stability of the region. When these countries will be linked with each other properly with rail and road networks, they will have more inter-regional trade, intra-regional trade. The more trade means that they have more economic interdependence among each other. Therefore, they will be knowing that their economic prosperity will be at cost if they go for war, if they go for some conflict. So, having economic interdependence on each other will be very, very helpful for them to bring peace and stability. Also, when the routes become functional and other country used to start to use that route freely and liberally for trade and other purposes, that other countries will also develop stake in that route for its healthy functioning. So they will also want that this conflict can be avoided. So diplomatically also other countries will get involved and make sure that these countries do not fight among themselves and establish the peace. So in longer run, it is going to be helpful for peace and stability, because more interconnection, more integration will help bring more political stability because of the interdependence of the region. Okay. So background of this initiative. The initiative came during the talks that were held over last 18 months in forum called I2U2, as I had already talked about it. Israel raised the idea of connecting the region through railways during this meeting, and part of the idea was to use India's expertise on such big infrastructure project. The presence of China in West Asian region. Now, why India is keen to talk about to be participant in this is obviously presence of China, mission creep, I have already discussed. India's interest in West Asia, energy security, lot of remittances coming from this region. So our foreign exchange reserves, etc., are also important. Are also important component. Then we keep in mind when we are forming policy towards this region. India as an infrastructure builder. This will help project the image of India as an infrastructure builder, and it will bring us more projects in future from other countries also. India's connectivity to Western Asian regions, Western Asian neighbors faces several challenges. That India feels that India's connectivity to the neighbors in West Asia has been limited by the Pakistan's blocking of India's overland trade routes. Okay, so we are looking for alternative routes also. What is I2U2? This is about India, Israel, UAE and United States. Okay, 4-member grouping. Okay, this grouping is also termed as New Quad or Middle Eastern Quad, already discussed. Okay, it's only an international forum for economic cooperation.